I'm NADIAH LATIF and you're watching The Nation on Bernama TV. Today we look at the alarming rise in crimes against children and what we need to know. Joining me to discuss this legal aspects of child protection is AHMAD SHAMIL AZAD, advocate and solicitor. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
What can I say? Today's session is going to be a trigger warning, so I'm setting the stage right from the start. The alarming cases of violence against children. And by this we mean everything from physical, sexual, emotional, exploitation, neglect, and in today's age also cyber crimes against children are, I think, serious issues that are affecting our community, and sadly we're hearing more of that in recent times. So before we deep dive into the legal aspects of things, Shamil, can you share with me a little bit about why is this surge of alarming trend happening, or is it we've just gotten better at reporting?
Well, I think it's a little bit of both. Okay, as we can remember, back in the 90s, there was a lot of information pertaining to child abuse. There were advertisements on news, on the papers, even songs about child abuse, where we try to stop things like this from happening. But nowadays, there seems to be a bit of a focus towards offences like this happening. This is probably due to the fact that there is new laws to combat such a matter, and there is awareness among the public against what could be seen to be an offence and whether or not we should report it. And people are more open towards the seriousness or the dangers of child abuse, especially with the age of technology.
And we know this for a fact. I mean, if we're talking about protection against children, very often people assume just the Child Act. But there's actually a whole host of acts that are available. Yes. There's, of course, the Child Act. There is the SOAC, Sexual Offences Against Children's Act. We have the UNCRC, which we have been signatory, the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child. We also have the Domestic Violence Act. We also have Employment Act to protect children against, modern day slavery. We also have the Education Act, the National Child Protection Policy. So there's a whole list here that you can see on screen, which we're sharing with you so that you are aware. And today we've got even the Computer Crimes Act and ATIP-SOMO, Anti-Trafficking in Persons and Anti-Smuggling of Migrants, because child trafficking and human trafficking is $1 billion industry now.
And it's an illicit industry that affects the whole world. It's not merely secluded to our nation. It's a problem that happens all over the world, and if it's not stopped at this stage, it could become worse in the future.
And I think in recent times we've seen a higher number of cases of neglect. In the past, being left at home was just, being left at home. But now you have cases of neglect. In fact, in 2023, there were about 8,041 cases reported, which was a 19% increase from the year before. And this, of course, negligence is one form of child abuse. We've also seen children being left in cars. We've also seen children dying from being exposed to harms. But we've also seen, which I find one of the more sinister and worrying trend, is under the Internet Watch Foundation portal, Malaysia's reports for online child pornography that was hosted in Malaysia in 2024, from Jan to March 2024, was about 8,602 reported cases, which was a 50% jump from 2023. So if we're talking about the kind of things that are happening, it's not only, I guess, violence that's happening in person, but also happening online. That's
the thing. What we, in the past few years, have suddenly been faced is the issue of information technology. We're, I wouldn't say unprepared, but we're still trying to catch up to the amount of crimes that can be committed online. And as we see, even trafficking in persons, trafficking in children is partially something that happens online as well. Now, there's also issue of grooming, which happens also online via communications through social media, through emails, through messages. And with the coming of technology, and now the children at home have internet access, have smartphones, usually for learning, but now they are exposed to all these lanes whereby they could be vulnerable to predators, to other dangers, which is something the laws must keep up in order to combat. And also we need to educate both enforcement at home and at schools how we can detect all these problems and somehow stop it from happening. Because the acts, as you can see, there was a long list of acts and laws. Those acts and laws come into play mostly once the offence already happened.
When something bad happens.
Yes. By that time, we already have a victim. We want to stop that from happening in the first place. So I think it's, though the laws are there, they are solid, we also need to have more awareness, a more proactive action, not merely from the enforcement body, but also from the community to combat something like this.
Thanks for mentioning that, because the very fact that there are a list of laws doesn't mean that people know. Simplest example to this is you don't really know what you're going to get fined with if you exceeded the speed limit unless you actually get caught, right?
Yes.
So in most cases, I would like to think that some of us are actually doing things that are not right, and in fact even considered crimes against children, and we only realize that this is actually not okay and not permissible only after when we get caught. Correct. So now that we're talking about this, is it possible for you to kind of run through what are the types of abuse that are prevalent now, and how do we define them, just in case there are people who are not so sure what does physical abuse entail, emotional abuse entail. So take it away.
So one of the things that is actually quite interesting, something that used to be quite prevalent in the past and nowadays is deemed to be a danger. Back then, as a child, I remember crossing the street and there were children playing on the street, children running everywhere with little supervision or care. But back then, it was in a way a safer society. Nowadays, you can't even leave your child out by the roadside. It's dangerous.
Yes.
Now, in many cases, leaving a child without supervision, that's considered as neglect. And we've seen, unfortunately...
Pengabayan, yeah?
Yes, pengabayan. And we've seen cases whereby children who are tasked to buy something from the shop suddenly go missing and unfortunately found later to have been murdered or tortured, or in some form something heinous happened. Now that is a change of values from what we were back then in the 90s or 80s to what we are now. So neglect is one of the issues that we have to look into. We've seen cases whereby children were left in the car for too long in the heat. Now that wasn't much of a problem due to the fact that there wasn't that many cars back then. But nowadays, it's a serious issue. Letting your child out playing bicycles in the street in the middle of the night, and then they fall victim to a motor car incident. That's another issue. But those are neglect. Now, of course, we know the hallmark abuse, the physical abuse. Hitting your child is, there must be purpose, there must be reason, and there must never be an overuse of force. Okay, and when you do that, you do it to harm the child and you cause injury. That's clearly an offense. Now, it's not only physical injury, I mean mental injury as well. Some people can abuse a child by psychologically abusing them, manipulating them. In fact, nowadays we hear cases about children being forced to beg in the streets. Now, even that manipulation is also an offense. The scariest of all that we're facing nowadays is child grooming, which is addressed by the SOAC Act, whereby section 4567, 4567, yes, we did discuss on the issue of children being groomed to perform sexual acts or something gruesome online via communication with third parties. This is extremely vulnerable. Our children are extremely vulnerable to this because of the fact that they have internet access. We cannot escape that. This is the age of technology. Even learning sometimes requires internet access. Smart devices are available, but that opens up a very huge vulnerability, something that we have to really look into. So that is also another form of an offense, child grooming. And there are also other abuse, like under section 15, non-physical sexual assault, something that does not involve direct contact, but again, a child can be made, for example, to watch a horrendous movie or even illicit acts on the phone, and that is also an offense. I believe the laws here are trying to cordon off all these particular acts, but we have to keep proactive. The parliament must keep looking because technology is changing at extremely fast paces, and I hope we can catch up.
Definitely, and I think just yesterday there was a meeting with the ministry looking at potential amendments to the penal code. And what else should we be looking at? Do we need an updated Cybercrimes Act, for example? Now, I'm going to go back to the Sexual Offences Against Children Act, but I like what you said about how grooming very often goes unnoticed. And in most cases in Malaysian society, I'm going to jump the gun here, Malaysian society, we have this feeling of, jangan jaga tepi kain orang lah. You know, I think this is bad, but I'm not sure whether it's a crime yet, or I'm afraid that my neighbor might think I'm actually kepo, so I just don't report, or I don't highlight something that, you know, is otherwise already bordering or already wrong. And what you're mentioning is true, because the very point of taking citizen action is making sure that not only neighborliness is put back, but also that understanding that grooming is in itself a crime. And we're seeing a lot more cases of gaslighting in the youth and children as well now, where that manipulation goes to the point where you actually believe that that is your truth and your reality, right? Shamil, I want to ask you, over the last few years, we've seen terrible things happening in schools, we've seen it in sporting activities and institutions, we've seen it in orphanages, religious institutions, and we were just talking about it prior to going on set today. Of course, this started in 2016 with the horrific case of Richard Huckle, and that brought about SOAC in 2017. We have the 2017 cases in Perak, 2018 in Kepong, 2019 in Perlis and Lawas, 2022 in Sungai Petani, 2023 in Johor. The list is endless, and you know, now we've got Abang Bas and we've got the cases that are currently ongoing. All this very often involving teachers, involving religious authorities, involving parents, peers, friends, people who otherwise are trusted by these children or people who are known by these children.
Yes.
So while we're saying that Malaysia has a set of laws that look at cordoning off antisocial behaviour or crimes against children, is the SOAC effective in doing what it's meant to do? How can we do better?
Okay, the SOAC itself provides for a lot of provisions that would help us combat these crimes. But I think the law itself, like I've stated before, when the law takes action, it's usually after the fact. Once something has happened, we need to prevent it. Now, the most important thing is to, number one, allow for the society to understand fully what is this crime and make the society understand that we cannot stand by and allow it to happen. Like you said, some of the family members or maybe your neighbors feel like, you know, jaga tepi kain orang. But we have to remember, the children are the inheritors of our future. Now, if we don't protect them, if we don't show them the proper way, if we don't try to protect them from all these predators, what will happen to our future? Now, that's the thing. So we need to stop thinking about, oh, that's their problem, and start thinking about, hey, this is my future's problem. This is our society's problem. The laws are there, but we need to make sure as a society we play our part. Okay, now people in authoritative positions, or maybe people who have custody over children, control over children, they need to also be further educated. Okay, times are changing. What constitutes as a casual touch in the 90s may not be the same nowadays. But that's the thing, we need to keep updating them with what should be the norm and what is outside our control. Furthermore, when we're talking about victims among school children and also victims who are from some institutions, we need to keep amping up the enforcement, and at the same time amping up the knowledge of those educators, people in positions, to look for the signs, of children who have been abused.
What are the signs? Well, what are some of the things that we should be looking out for? Because if you're talking about signs and symptoms of a child who's potentially abused, if you were physically abused, it's very often it's either evident or abuse happening in places that you don't see, right? Yes. So until it's something that has been prolonged. But there are many others that are a lot more clandestine, a lot more under the radar. So what are some of the symptoms that we should be looking out for?
Well, number one, we should be alert for any sudden changes in behavior. A child that's usually very cheerful suddenly becomes quiet as a mouse, or someone who shies away from a touch, who previously was very touchy-feely. Now, when those signs happen, I believe you should perk up a sign, a red flag, if you will, for you to look, okay, something's not right here. Now, those are mental or what we call behavioral signs. Now, physical signs, as you know, if you see any bruises or a child suddenly not coming to school for long periods of time due to some weird illnesses, maybe look into it. At the same time, what's most important with children, of course, most of them will not tell. Okay,
sometimes they don't have the vocabulary to tell.
They do not have a voice. Now, we need to teach our people who are in power, people who are in control, teachers, maybe even parents, how to converse with the child, to let them open up, to know it's a safe space. In fact, in many cases that I have seen, children often who are victims of offences, abuse or sexual otherwise, would rarely open up to their parents, but would readily open up to doctors. Now, we have excellent trained doctors, pediatric experts, psychiatrists who can open up a child, who can see what it's like and ask the right questions for the child to open up and reveal what actually happened to them. I believe some of that training should be extended to the community, even to the parents at home.
How effective do you think the child lines are at the moment in helping children? Because we have also seen cases where children have taken it upon themselves, or perhaps their friends have helped to call on their behalf. And we've got several talian, including Talian Kasih, which is 15999, which is helped by the ministry. But having said that, how do you find these lines? Have they been helpful at all?
I believe they have been of some help, but you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink it. So there's two things that we need to first make sure is in place. Number one, the cognizance of an offence. Okay, the people need to know that this is wrong, this is something that's actionable, and secondly, having the courage, making it a norm, making it acceptable for the people to actually report it. Like you said, there was some people believe that this is none of my business. Okay, if it doesn't happen before me, I would know of it. But we should be alert to these things, because by the time you know of it, it might have been a little bit too late.
I want to dive on the fact that you said the courage to do something about it. And a lot of people don't know this, but the Sexual Offences Act against children actually do have provisions specifically to protect reporters or those who inform on crimes against children. Now, which part of the act is that? And how do we then draw on this comfort that if we are going to be doing something, we are going to be reporting, we are actually protected by the law?
Yes. Well, first of all, even before the SOAC came around, we had the Whistleblowers Act 2010, which provides for immunity against prosecution, and also the fact that a person can, their identity can be kept secret should they inform of a crime. So that particular provision itself should stand in place, front and center. However, of course, if you are a valuable witness who have yourself seen the crime, then perhaps your information, your testimony might be needed in court. However, if you want to tip off the police anonymously, you can do so. There's evidence, there's methods available. Even the phone lines can keep your identity a secret.
And they're meant to keep their identity secret.
They're meant to keep it. So the people should not be afraid.
Can you share some real-world examples of when the law has managed to save and protect children and cases where we've fallen short?
Well, let's start with the fallen short. Well, it's evident. We've been hearing of it quite a lot. There have been children who've been abandoned in cars during the heat, and that has led them to their death. Or children who were not given supervision or allowed to stay up past their bedtime, riding motorcycles or bicycles on the highway, which inadvertently led to road crash accidents and their deaths. Now, it's highly, highly unfortunate for something like that to happen. But I believe the kesedaran or the understanding of the consequences of such issues has yet to really penetrate into the families. We still allow some children to ride motorcycles without licenses, without helmets, all for the issue of efficiency or to make it easier for them to attend schools. Our parents went to school on buses and they were still fine.
Or walking as well.
Or walking, and that would be healthier. And there has been many cases where, for example, the recent GISB raids, where we've rescued children who were in dire situations, and those are clear examples of the law itself working. But as again, like I've said, most of these events only transpire after the fact, and it's now on us to assist those children who are victims in order to survive such situation and reintegrate to society.
I think, Shamil, the point that you're trying to make here is that when the law is in effect and it's after the fact, the honest truth is damage is already done.
Yes.
It's either at the most extreme a loss of life, or a breakdown of a family institution, or children who would have to suffer from trauma pretty much their whole lives into adulthood. And so we see this cycle happening again with them potentially, hopefully not, but becoming perpetrators in future. And we've seen so many of this. So I want to go down to justice delayed is not justice served, is it? And in terms of victim support, so if you're talking about the cases that we've seen in court, both of us have seen this in court, and very often the perpetrators are children themselves. What protection does the law provide for minors who are the perpetrators of such violence against children or crimes against other children?
Okay, well, the thing is, we have general protection under Child Act, whereby the Child Act addresses or provides a certain set of sentences or procedures separate to our general criminal procedure code or the penal code itself. So when the court has to deal with children, now usually if it's merely a child, it's just a child, they would become a court for children, whereby the procedures are even different. The identities of the children are protected and kept secret, and also the amount of options the court has in order to provide for a sentence for all punishment once the offence has been proven is also widely different. So for children, we can send them either for a bond of good behaviour perhaps, or maybe even probation. And
so what does a bond for good behaviour and probation mean, so that everybody understands? Bond kelakon baik and probation, what does this mean?
Well, bond kelakon baik simply means that a person is allowed to return home, to return to normal livelihood, except for certain syarat if there is any, and within those period of the bond, they are not to commit any offence.
They have to check in? They
do. Most of the times the courts will order for them to check into the Balai Police or even to JKM perhaps to ensure that they are on the straight and narrow. Now, if any offence happens or because they breach the terms of their bond, they can be hauled back to court and face the same charges again with the full power of the sentencing. So that is in a way is a second chance, usually afforded for cases with usually relatively light offences. Now, for heavier ones, we have, of course, Sekolah Tunas Bakti, STB, and also we have the well-known Henry Gurney, which is also a good correctional place, which I have seen in my career that it has been effective in changing even sometimes the most hardcore of offenders. But that's the thing, the Child Act provides for a secondary lane. A child is not treated the same. A child is not treated the same as any adult offender. We allow chances for them to redeem themselves, make something out of themselves, so that they don't always carry that burden of being an offender for life.
And also because you're talking about the Child Act, right from the first preamble talks about the best interest of the child.
Of course.
So even if you are a perpetrator or an alleged offender in this particular situation, that benefit of the doubt is often given by the law to not only help you make your best case, but also understand whether you were once a victim or whether there are other, underlying circumstances. Now that we've talked about them, if we flip it, what about the children who are victims in court? What allowances or protections under the law for them? For example, if you were a child victim, are you meant to be going to court? Is there provisions that allows you to give video testimonies, etc., that protects you from reliving that trauma while your case is ongoing? So I'm thinking about the case that we shall not mention right now, but that long list of children that will probably have to give so much of what they've gone through.
Well, that's the thing. The Child Act provides for many different methods and means for a child to testify in court. We understand that a courtroom trial is nothing to sniff about. It's actually can be quite traumatizing, especially reliving your experiences before an audience specifically. And sometimes a child may clam up and may not provide the truthful evidence, or perhaps choose not to testify if that happens. But that's when the Child Act provides for many new ways and means for us to provide testimony. There's even the Act, Evidence of a Child Act, whereby children can now testify via a live feed. Okay, a separate room, separate from the rest. They'll be in that room in a safe situation with a camera and a microphone, and the questions can be posted through there. So there is no, there's at least that barrier between the child and whoever it is that's offended them, to ensure that they are safe and to allow them an open and safe space to truly tell what's going on. Even the most rudimentary barriers that were put in court to stop them from viewing their offenders directly, that also exists. Even in investigations, during investigation period, when the victim is a child, the process of taking their information or investigation is also separate. They can be sent to a child interview center, CIC, where police who have been trained specifically to question children will be employed, and their testimony will be recorded, and that can be replayed in court without having them to tell, recount the whole testimony about what truly happened. But those measures and means have their own procedures and provisos. Even proceedings in court is catered separately when involving children. Okay, we are not allowed to simply question children or raise our voices to children witnesses and bang the table and intimidate them. That is not allowed. The court will be on site and will look into these matters. A court for children takes more of an active role. Remember, we are trying to protect the children and trying to see what's best for them. So our conduct as lawyers or prosecutors in court would also differ when we're talking about children.
As we zoom into the final points, I've got two questions for you. The first one quickly is, how do you think the law has been protecting those that otherwise fall through the cracks? You're talking about the really minor, the stateless, and persons with disability who are also minors.
Okay, the laws are there, and more we are passing new laws to protect children of tender years from being manipulated. However, I think with the law must come at least some form of understanding and training, and also acceptance by society. The laws can be, we can pass new laws time and again, but again, it's more towards, what's important here is to avoid something from happening in the first place. I believe the law should also keep evolving throughout the time. Right. Now, the issue of statelessness is a serious issue, and I believe that one needs to be looked into, especially post such a trial or matter in court.
So, in one sentence, if you could implement one significant change as we wrap up for today, what would that be?
A register for child offenders or sexual child offenders. A register where we keep information on offenders who are involved with children or sexual offences against children. So it's a separate register whereby we can be on alert and perhaps even disallow them from being anywhere close to territories where children would frequent.
Thank you so much, Shamil. Unfortunately, that's all the time that we have now. Listen, you are protected under the law. If you see something, hear something, or know something that's happening against children, Malaysia, keep safe, stay kind. Take care.